is a walkable mixed use, live, work, play kind of site that would be anchored by a life science academic partner. And so this is the site. The event that occurred at the end of July was a press announcement. It was actually held right inside the metro station. So it was a little bit of limited amount of space, but it seemed to accommodate things fairly well. WMATA was interested in sort of having people be able to see where the station is and what the open cut is behind it and where the development is going to be. So at the event itself was for WMATA to release a request for qualifications for a master developer for the site. The people who were there, I mean, Randy Clark was kind of the host, county executive. We had both U.S. senators there to support the effort. Both Cardin and Van Hollen, the congressional delegation, had provided, as you may recall, $5 million in an earmark for the North Entrance project. And from the county, it was the county executive, Council President Preetson, Council Vice President Stewart, and Council Member Evan Glass, who've all been supportive of the effort. In addition, the governor wasn't able to be there, and the lieutenant governor wasn't able to be there, but they sent both the state commerce secretary and transportation secretaries to be there and make comments and support. So a lot of state and federal support for this, in addition to all that the county has been doing. I think, Nkosi, if you can maybe move to the next slide. Yeah, so here again, this was there for the press event because a number of people there were not as familiar as this group with what the White Flint, North Bethesda area really looks like. So this, you see where the metro station is and so forth. And then also in the image is you can see down at the bottom, the old White Flint Mall property. So I think we can go to the next slide. Go see. And so I just wanted to show this group. This is really it is an artist's rendering. So this is not a proposal by a developer at this point, but there was a need for something when Montgomery County Department of Transportation and the Maryland State Department of Transportation were putting in a RAISE grant earlier this year. They needed something that would sort of provide a real image of what was possible here to make it competitive. And so you can see this is a view from sort of about where, north of the intersection, sort of where maybe from Pike and Rose, looking south, and you can see what's possible. One of the key things here is the development of a building over top of a new north entrance, sort of connect it to the rest of the community. But again, this is just an artist's rendering of what's kind of an image of what might be possible. And it just notes there who the partners are. The University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing, which had significant funding from the county and from the state now, and has in the last legislative session gotten ongoing commitment to funding $6 million a year in operating expenses going forward. They are already, as I've said at earlier meetings, already located on Executive Boulevard and have opened. They opened we occupied the space, I guess, the 1st of January, and they already have about 70 researchers on site and are continuing to recruit more. So they have published in a lot of significant medical journals, including the New England Journal of Medicine and others. They have gotten a significant number of grants, and a number of the researchers who they've recruited are bringing their grants with them from other institutions around the country. So it's a really strong start. And I think I also mentioned at an earlier meeting, perhaps uh, their lease in the current building is for 11 years, but with the opportunity to move after 6 years if they give notice. So as this site develops, and if it develops in the time frame that we're hoping for, then the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing could build a building there on the site, or be part of a larger building in kind of a condominium structure, which the university has done before for other buildings. And the idea is that they will move on to this site in one of the primary locations within the site. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along, but Nkosi, if you want to move, yeah, thank you, to the next one. So here again, and again, this was for the benefit of the people who were at the press conference, and were starting from kind of, in some cases, ground zero on understanding what was going on here. And you can see the top left corner of that, it shows the development, including a build over for the north part of the site, where there will be a north entrance. The lower left quadrant there in the image again shows the image from the north looking south, and then the bottom right shows an image sort of looking north at an angle toward where Pike and Rose is from within the site. And then you see some of the key facts. I mean, it's almost 14 acres. And when it says it supports up to 3.7 million square feet of mixed use development, it's really, that's allowable. It's not clear yet what a master developer will come in with as a final image and what the market provides. And I would say also that I think that WMATA and others in the industry anticipate that this is going to be likely a phased development, where they start with some of the principal spots within the site, and then move on from there as things fill out. And the other thing I would just mention again, and again looking at the bottom left image here, you see an image of the anticipated BRT that would run down the middle of 355. With some of the buses and the stop there north, immediately adjacent to where north entrance will be. And then also on the sort of the east-west image, like sort of the bottom left of that, where you see Old Georgetown Lane, there's also the BRT that would run east-west over to Montgomery, the old Montgomery Mall site. So that's the images there. And Nkosi, if you want to just go down to the last one, I think there's one more. Yeah, and this again was just to show the people there at the image, or excuse me, at the event, how this would connect to other parts of the transportation system in the area, and what other highlights this would serve as a transit-oriented development, where it would connect to things like NIH, FDA, how it connects to NIST, et cetera. So that was the kind of the list of things that were covered in the press event. Happy to answer any questions about that, but also could move on and talk about a couple of other things that are going on. If there's not an immediate question, I'll just mention the RAISE grant. I sort of alluded to it earlier, but again, it's something we talked about in an earlier meeting. But the RAISE grant was submitted for the north entrance back in, I think it was February was the deadline, and it was submitted by Montgomery County DOT, but with support from WMATA and the State Department of Transportation, and it did not get funded in that round, which was announced, I think, in late July, but it was designated as a project of merit, and it was ranked as highly rated. And just in the last several weeks, the US DOT has reached out, provided a debrief, which was requested by Montgomery County DOT, on kind of what were the pieces that resulted in us not getting that grant in that round. And so they are working on some of the things that they think were maybe uh, the U.S. Department of Transportation maybe didn't focus on, that were mentioned in the application, that we could tweak the application to make it a bit stronger in a couple of areas and clarify a couple of things that appear to be maybe a misunderstanding of what the intent was. So that will be coming up soon. The reapplication, uh, US DOT believes it'll happen in October, late October, uh, possibly early November, but they expect it to happen this year. And it, we're hoping to put in the application again and move forward with that, and hopefully it gets funded. Uh, I think that the consultants for WMATA believe it was a strong application. The fact that we already have committed here from the state and the county significant amount of money for this, so they believe it's a strong application, and because it's two in the same year, two rounds in the same year, effectively, they have a sense that they know the competition and think this will be a strong reapplication. So that's kind of where we are. I would just go ahead. You had a question? If not, I would just the
No, Tom, I have a
schedule.
question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
With the state's recent announcement of very little funding for transportation project, is this going to be affected, or is this already in that commitment?
So what we had applied for in the initial raise grant was money that was already committed. Some of it's already come down to the state. Uh, so we have it in our now in our county, funding that can be appropriated when we need it. And so that funding is secure. It would be helpful to have additional funding or additional commitment from the state. And we think this is an important funding initiative. And so, even if the state spreads funding out over a couple of years, it could still help us with the project ultimately. And for them to make the commitment in the current year, it may not affect the match that we're able to submit for this year, because we're still in the same fiscal year. Whatever the state appropriated last year is what we can say we actually have in our hands. But if the state can make a commitment to what they plan to put in the coming year or the coming 2 years, that would help us sort of at the edges of this next round. So, but it will be tighter than it has been for a number of years. Uh, and if you don't mind, that reminded me of something that Kosi mentioned earlier. The site work, which is about to begin on the site, was from earlier money that the county had gotten from the state of about 8.1 million that went to that was designated for finishing out that interior road network and leveling. You all are probably aware that there's kind of a deep drainage ditch on the property now. So it would level that and finish off that road grid, leaving the piece, like the western half, just about, of the site undeveloped for right now, until the master developer comes back with a plan for the rest of that site. Any other questions on that?
Any other questions for Tom? Don't see any.
Nikosi, Mr. Goldstein has had his hand up, and I don't think he has his mic on.
Okay.
I can see that on my screen.
Mr. Goldstein, go ahead. We cannot hear you. I don't know why. If you could put your question in the chat, is one way to go. I can see you, but I can't read your lips. So, or you could also try logging out and trying to log back in and see if that will make a difference on your end. In the meantime, are there any other questions for Mr. Lewis?
Okay. Yeah, and I'll be on the
rest
of the meeting. So if
good.
question
Thank you,
comes
Tom.
in later.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay. Abby. All right. Hearing no others or seeing no hands, we will. Oh, there's a question. There's a site next to the aquatic center that states life science on it. Do you know anything about this? So I could take that one. So that's the former Gables property now has a new owner. Stonebridge is the new owner for that property. And let me go back in here and bring up that's this property here. It was approved, this is what, 24, I believe, last year by the board for additional R&D, would be 3 buildings. We have not gotten any other information if Stonebridge plans to move forward on with that prior approval. So that's all I could say regarding that former Gables, now Stonebridge development. It's already been verbally teed up with new approvals to allow the property owner to move forward to do research and development / life sciences uses. So we'll see next year, maybe later this year, if there's any movement on that regarding financing of that specific type of use. So that's what I could share about that. Thank you for putting your question in the chat. Seeing no more hands, I hear no more voices, so we're gonna keep things. So next up is Jean. Jean is with Montgomery County Department of Transportation, and Jean has been working on a variety of bikeways in North Bethesda, including the one here on Old Georgetown Road between 55 and Town Road. So Jean, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. And thanks everybody for inviting me here to talk to you about our project. I want to share my screen with you. So let's see how this works, because we all have new teams and some weird things were happening today. So I hope this will work. We are working on a set of bike lanes. Let me try one quick thing here and get rid of that out of the way and do this. Aha. Okay, so I wanted to start with, my name is Jean. First of all, I work in the Department of Transportation in the capital projects area. I'm a capital projects manager in the Department of Transportation Engineering. And so we're responsible for developing the projects that come out of all the planning documents and studies that are done. And Nkosi mentioned the intersection at Maryland 355 and Old Georgetown Road, which on this map is right smack dab in the middle of this map. And I am not working on that project directly. That one is designed. It's permitted. It would be ready to go to construction, but I am not sort of in the loop about what the dates might be for that. So I would hate to put out any information that might end up being incorrect. But it is designed, and so it's well ahead of the one that I'm showing you here tonight. And if I find out any better information, or if I can invite any managers from that job to come to your next meeting, Kosi, I'll let you know. If we could find out more info to share. In the meantime, this is being planned to tie into that project. So it's a little behind design wise of that. We're calling this 35% up here on this plan sheet. This is a sort of a concept level, but at 30%, you're pretty good on what you want to do. We've had this out in front of people from planning, traffic. Our own office has looked at it. Our bike experts have looked at it, so that we've looked at signalization, signage, all the things that we would need to do to put buffered bike lanes from Old Georgetown Road to Town Road, as Nkosi said. So it's 2 long blocks really of Old Georgetown Road. We're calling them a buffered bike lane. It is one of the, if you've had a hierarchy of the different kinds of areas and spaces that people can bike in, this is a higher level one because it actually separates. There's a physical separation between the bike lane and the traffic in the lanes. There isn't always room for this. You have to make the room for this and commit to doing it. But that was the idea behind this entirely, was to make these a buffered bike lane. So there'll be 1 lane in each direction on Old Georgetown Road. So the bikes will travel in the direction of travel, the same as the cars on each side. So if you keep that in mind of sort of how people are going to be moving around. There are still sidewalks. There are still a shared use path in a few places. So there are plenty of places for people on foot and for pedestrians, but this would be specifically for bike usage, and to again separate people from the travel lane itself, and hopefully be safer. These have gone around, like I said, we went around to everybody first to get an idea of what all the expectations were from all these different offices, from back in the planning idea of what are we trying to achieve. Those all of those ideas and all of those opinions have come together into this plan. So it's way more than just a concept at 35%, but that is kind of what we call it. And these have gone around now for comment, and I've gotten some of those comments back. Some people I'm still waiting on. It takes, people are very busy. It takes a long time to get those back. We have them being reviewed internally by our engineers and traffic people and all those people I mentioned. The planners were asked to look at it. The fire and rescue was asked to look at it. And we also have the outside of our of the county agencies is the state. I'll show you the plan in a second. The intersection itself belongs to the state. I guess I'd go ahead and switch over. This is 355 on our plan here, and this is Old Georgetown Road going east-west. And this Old Georgetown Road here actually belongs to the county. It was dedicated to the county when all of this western workaround was rebuilt. But the intersection itself is of course a state road. So there'll be some interface there that we'll have to work with them. We have it on their desks as well, waiting for their comments to come back. The main things they're going to look at is the signal and the timing of all of that, and make sure it works with all the legs of the intersection, and some of the lane configuration too, just to make sure they're good with everything. This plan is showing the ultimate design of the intersection that we were talking about, and when we're not sure when it's going to go to construction, but this is what it will look like when it's done. So you'll notice these old curb lines here along the edges, these curved lines at each corner are those old curbs, and this has all been now built out to be just a more traditional intersection, 4-leg intersection here. So our project going westbound from the intersection starts here, and we're going to taper this down to 1 lane at the beginning of this, and it will eventually, not far, a couple hundred feet, we'll transition back into 2 lanes going down toward Town Road. There's right where my little hand is pointing. I don't know if that's easier than the arrow. I think we'll use the hand. Where the hand is pointing, my fingers. That'll be the new curb line inside where the road is now. We have bus stops on this road as well that have to be accommodated. I'm actually working out the location of these right now. These are all ride-on buses in this area, no WMATA directly managed buses. These are all ride-on. And we're probably going to end up tweaking these a little. That's where this 30% plan comes in. Like, everybody look at it and tell us what you want to fix up. But this, I'll show you in a cross section in a minute how this is going to work. Well, these buses will be able to stop. People will be able to get across this bike lane, and it'll be a safe access on foot or on wheels for anyone who may need that. There'll be a nice transition to get across to the bike lane. I'm sorry, to the bus stop. I keep saying it wrong. So that's what these look like. There's one on each side in each direction. In somewhere in this block, well, these may have to shift just a bit. Going westbound and continuing westbound. Whoops, I'm going to go backwards. We're going to go across Grand Park Avenue, and your bike, if you're on your bike, will be behind all these curbs. So you will have that separation and be able to get across this intersection, and then that bike lane continues. There are these turn lanes that are dangerous. We'll have these marked. I'll show you that in a minute. So people know there are bikes to be expected here while they're driving and turning. And we're continuing down then to Town Road. Here is the end of the project. So by the time we get down to here, we've accommodated turns onto Town Road in each direction, and the right number of through lanes to continue down Old Georgetown Road. Let's see here, which way am I going? There we go. One quick thing going back eastbound, again, bus stops, all the right number of lanes. These medians, concrete medians that will form this bike lane. We had to make a big decision about what to do with this at 355. Do we start? Do we stop? Do we continue? We know there are other bike lanes and bike lane projects down the road toward Nebel and others that are coming. We do know that, but we had to stop this somewhere. We just, you only have so much money for each project and things like that. And so we've continued, as you're going eastbound, we do continue across this intersection. There's a small section of that same median again, and I'll show you again the striping in a second, with one lane. And as you continue down Old Georgetown Road in this direction, there are actually cars parked to the right. It's a very wide road. And so we believe that things can continue for now as people would today on bicycles. But this gets them through that intersection with a much better configuration of space and signing and pavement markings that should hopefully be safer than it is today to get through this intersection and enable people to ride their bikes this way. So this is where we'll end it here, going eastbound. Westbound, it picks up and starts from Rockville Pike. Now I tried, let me see if I can do this. Okay. This isn't as pretty as I would have liked it to be, but I tried to do this anyway. Adobe's can be a little finicky. These are what we call a cross section of our road, of our project. The dotted ones at the top of each of these are the existing configuration, and all of these are facing eastbound on this road. So there's a stationing number here, 118 to 124, that gives you the section of the road that this applies to. Again, we're in 30%, and I've already found that we need a couple more cross sections in here to add to the plan to really fill this out, because there are some transitions we want to capture. But for tonight, I think this works well. Hopefully it works well. Stop me at any point to try to show what this is going to look like in the future condition. So the dotted one is existing today. There's 3 lanes going eastbound, 3 lanes coming back westbound. In the future condition, at this intersection near Town Road, and here's a sort of cross section of it from Google Maps, which is some of it's obviously doesn't look this way today. If this construction, some of it's done, some of it's not. But this is going to be a median in the center, and then these small medians on the side, little concrete, almost like a concrete parking. If you think of it like a parking block that you would put down in it's kind of a small median, and then there'll be a 5-foot bike lane on each side to accommodate the bikes in each direction. And those should have arrows too. Those are 1 lane heading in that direction and 1 lane heading back westbound. In this particular area, this shared use path on the photograph remains. The bike lane is inside the curb. So that'll be nice because it lets people walk and stroll and all of that. And the bikes can use the road and not be interacting at all with the pedestrians. So I hope that sort of shows, I hope this is going well because I have a few more of them to show you. As we move up the road and start to get closer to Grand Park Avenue, it's a similar idea. But here we're going to eventually have a bigger median and a bus stop where necessary. And this is the idea of that bus stop, that the bike lane, the sidewalk, the bus stop are all going to be kind of leveled with one another. So it's a little tricky to get all of that vertical construction right, but we want to keep them level with each other. So people that have any disability or need to use a stroller or need to use a wheelchair will not be having to go down into the bike lane, back up into the thing, and then to get on the bus. So there's a certain configuration for this. We are apparently this is a little under, kind of one of those things that's still being refined as far as what's the best way to do this. But this is the idea. So one way or another, we'll put in whatever the latest, greatest is for these bus stops here. And again, a median in the center. As you get up a little bit further, you start to get to the intersection at 355. Now you're getting into where these lanes are continuing into and across 355 itself. You start to notice that we don't have this turn lane anymore. This is a picture today with these turn lanes that are here, the slip lanes and those islands. Those will be coming out, and this curb will continue here along the side of the road, and we'll still have all the right number of lane configurations. This is one of those areas that I noticed that it's a comment of mine I've made that we'll fix up. This is 2 lanes in a portion of this stretch, but here at the intersection, it will be 1 that gets turning cars and cars from across 355 into this section of Old Georgetown Road. But later in this same stretch, there are 2 lanes, so it can be a little confusing. So we will definitely fix that up.
Again, Jean, can I ask you a question at this point about this?
Absolutely, yeah.
What happens to the traffic? Because lanes are being lost. Mm-hmm. And I drive this rather frequently. Mm-hmm. And I know that Old Georgetown now is a mess. Mm-hmm. And with school buses starting to come out of the new high school, there are times that you just do not go that way. So what are you all saying about the traffic, since these roads were all built with traffic counts, which now the traffic is getting worse, but the roads are decreasing?
Great question. Thank you. I am not a traffic engineer, so I'm going to put that out there right now. That is a science and an art in and of itself, but we have new traffic counts. We just got several months ago. We wanted to get them because they're post-COVID, and they're also post these updated roads, the Western workaround and Pike and Rose is all there. Everything is there now. We wanted to see what happens in this area. Did people find different ways to go? Are people working at home more? Is it a different traffic pattern? And so we have traffic counts throughout this at multiple intersections. And all of the traffic engineers have looked at those, and these lanes were configured based on that. I wish I could give you more detail as far as the technical, work that they did. I'm just not a traffic engineer, but I do know that was absolutely part of this design. The other thing about this that I have found as I've been going around talking about this project and a few others, it is really hard, and it's hard for me even to imagine this situation different than it is today. When we're having these lanes now, the intersection is not going to look like it does now, and the signal won't work the way that it does now. So the whole situation is going to be different as well. The traffic pattern will be different, and the times of the turning lanes and things like that are all going to be different than you see today. It is not at all our wish that we make anything worse than it is today, certainly. So I know that all the technical study of this has been done and will continue to be. If questions come up, it will continue to look at it.
Okay, so Jean, back to the traffic study that you mentioned.
Yep.
Is that available? Did the numbers go up, down, stay the same? What was the outcome?
Let me see if I can find for you. You know what I don't know if I have is any old stuff. I'd have to look and see what I have. I should say I started at DOT a year ago this month. And so a lot of work had been done on this prior to that, but really no design work. It had been a lot of study and a lot of talking. So the design really has come on since I did get here, and that I know. Let me go back and see if I could find some old info and find out what they found. And it's interesting. This is the thing with something like traffic, you know, when you don't know what you don't know, when I start talking about something I don't know, is up or down might not be the problem. More cars or less cars may not be the problem. It could be the timing. It could be where they appear. It could be the turns they're making rather than going straight. And so let me find out how to best explain that, if you don't mind. I'd like to.
No, that would be fine if you would supply it to Nkosi so he can tell all of us.
Let me do that. But I will tell you, we had a big meeting on all this area, and this project, I was the one who said, let's go get counts, and we did it. So it's going to actually inform other projects too, that we did this whole area over again. So,
Jean,
but thank you.
Jean, before you go,
Yeah,
I see on the hand, Abby Milstein.
Yeah.
Hi, Jean. Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I have a question and just a couple of comments that I want to add at this point. And
sure.
I don't know if you're taking these into consideration as you're moving through this process, but my first question is whether or not BRT is planned to be along this portion of Old Georgetown Road. That's my question.
Okay.
And if so, will there be a dedicated lane on that portion of Old Georgetown Road, which is being planned by DOT in accordance with the BRT's future plans for transit in the area?
Okay. First of all, I'm writing all this stuff down, so give me a moment, because I do not want to forget something if there's something I want to find out more information on. BRT is a project in and of itself that is it's in the director's office. We're not really part and parcel or even informed of what's going on with that project, I'll be honest, even when we have projects going on in this area. I am not, though, 100% sure that the BRT was going to be on this. If you just look at our website, because I've looked too, as to where there were two different phases in there. I'll have to check, but I will get back to Nkosi to make sure. If there is, if that was the case, we really I don't think we have room for a totally dedicated lane on this road. I don't know that would work.
I can jump in if you'd like, Jean.
Thank you.
Andrew Bossy also.
Yeah. Oh, there you
also,
go. Thanks, Andrew. Hi.
Andrew Bossy, also Montgomery County DOT in the director's office. Now, I'll preface I don't work with the BRT projects directly, but I'm familiar with them and I work with master plans, and I can answer some of those spin-off questions. So first, right now there are two alignments for that BRT. This is the North Bethesda Transit Way from White Flint out to North Bethesda, out to Rock Spring. And officially they have two different options right now. Old Georgetown is one of them. I think the other is, it's Tuckerman. But there is a master plan right now going through the planning board process. Actually just had its public hearing last week. It's called the Master Plan of Highways and Transit Ways. And one of the things that is proposing is to pick one alignment, and that is Old Georgetown. So it's very likely, I doubt that will change, but it's likely that this will be the path for BRT. Now, the second part of that question is whether this has lanes or not. Under that master plan, there are no additional BRT lanes being proposed at this time for this segment of Old Georgetown. Obviously, it's before the planning board right now. I think you actually have another week, a little over a week, to share comments with the planning board. That is still, testimony is open. And if you think there should be BRT lanes, absolutely write to the chair and say, hey, BRT lanes on Old Georgetown. But right now, I don't think any are proposed.
So to interrupt, if none are proposed, then the lanes that Jean has created on her program here, one of those lanes will have a BRT vehicle in it will there be a dedicated time frame for that vehicle? Is it going to be a vehicle that's running in those lanes just as needed? Is it an on-demand thing? Will there be no dedicated roadway to it? Then how does it make it a BRT, considering BRT means bus rapid transit?
I hear where this is going. For these, I think was it 2 blocks, 3 blocks, it would be mixed traffic if there are no dedicated lanes. So what that means for the BR part of BRT, well, the criticisms are very valid, but that it's what is being master planned at this point. And that's where, if there's a strong opinion that you really think there should be bus lanes and that it's important for what BRT means in this stretch to have them, that's where I think writing to the planning board and saying, hey, this span of Georgetown needs them, please look at it. That would be very good testimony to submit within the next week. And this is again at the planning board. So I think the email, I'll put the information in chat. Yeah, as soon as I stop talking, I'll get that for you. But the testimony is open right now for about a week.
Okay, and could you ask Nkosi to send that out to the group too, please? Because I see you're putting it in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm not on my computer right now, so it's very difficult for me to copy that. But if Nkosi could send it out to everybody, that would be appreciated.
I'll share it with everyone.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you, Andrew, very much.
No thanks.
That's better info than I had. Good.
And 2 more comments about that stretch of road and bike lanes. The rollout of the bike lanes on the rest of Old Georgetown Road was not done in a very professional or community accessible way. And I would encourage DOT and whatever entities are working on this right now to come to communities, especially the communities that are going to be impacted by this particular roadway, including mine, and I'm sure some of the other people on this call, because just rolling these things out without public information is a recipe for a catastrophic situation. We have older people in the neighborhood, and as these roadways start to change and morph with all this development, it becomes very confusing for people who've been used to driving in a particular way in a particular time to suddenly be confronted with all of these changes. And I do my best to try to notify the community, but the reality is I think the government has an obligation when doing these level of changes to the community to educate people as to what these changes are, how they're coming, how they're going to be rolled out, and that people aren't literally blindsided by waking up one morning, to find that suddenly these roads are transitioning and being blocked and being changed and are going to be something very, very different than what they have been for decades. And I know there's been change in this area, and I know we've been dealing with the Western workaround, but a lot of the feedback I get from the community is it would be great if we had some kind of public venue to discuss exactly what you're discussing with us right now. The other point I want to make
Can we discuss that for a minute so I can learn from you before you go on to another point? Can you tell me first of all what community you're part of and what community here is in particular I should be considering?
I represent the Lux Matter Citizens Association.
Okay.
Our homes abut Old Georgetown Road on the western side.
Okay. Okay. We have, and again, I've been here a year. Projects take a long time, so I haven't done every part of every type of project yet. But we have public meetings regularly. They are on the website, they are on Twitter and Facebook, and they are announced. We send out mailers for public meetings for projects. And I have not done one myself yet. I have several that are sort of right in the pipeline, and this is one of them. That is one of the things we'd be coming up to do next. But to learn like how they're done, how they're set up, how people run them, and see what works, what doesn't. I've watched a number of these in our office. Let me ask you, because honestly, I'd like to know, how do we increase attendance at these meetings? Because I've watched, they're online, they're on Zoom, you don't even have to come, they're in hybrid. And there have not been very many people actually attending. So I'd like to make sure people are getting the word about these projects and we're getting feedback on them. Do you have any advice or another way to reach out? Anything like that?
Yes, I think you need to be coming, as opposed to the government coming in and posting things on a site that's barely attended by the general public. I think a good thing to do would be to come into communities and ask, like, the presidents of the associations and the HOAs to give a presentation to their community rather than expecting the community to come to the presentation. Does that make sense?
It does. When I say we send out mailers, we send these out to adjacent property owners, and we'll put a sphere, around that project and say, go out this far or this many, or in this neighborhood or whatever. So I hope I didn't mislead you that we just throw it on the website and hope people see it. That we do target the people that are in those areas. But thank you for your feedback, because it is something that I'm trying to figure out too, like how best to do this. This particular project, if we were to do that, we have already, there have been charrettes that we've had on a separate little part of this, with representatives from the HOAs in this area, which, I mean, I don't know how big these buildings are, but there are tons of condos and apartments, and there are a lot of people that live right here. We've met with a lot of those representatives about this. Lux Manor being another. I'm trying to think of how we do that. Okay, let me figure something out. And then could you give me a little bit about where was the problem that you had? You said it was a catastrophic, or we need a community oriented. I'm laughing because I can't read my own handwriting. I'm trying to write fast in the dark. What was the example that you had, if you don't mind?
We were told that there were going to be some bike lanes all along Old Georgetown Road from approximately Executive Boulevard up to the intersection of 270.
Okay.
The next thing we knew, they had taken away lanes. They had put up bollards kind of over 8, and all of a sudden we lost a lane and we lost the ability to make turns.
Right. We
lost right-hand turns on red, and it became extremely difficult. And I will tell you, to this day, it's still extremely difficult to merge from I-270 onto Old Georgetown Road. Mm-hmm. Our president had to call our state delegation to get signs and larger indicators that there were no yield opportunities coming in to that intersection. And then older people, the roads are not properly lit, which is, I'm going to get to that in a minute. So for older people driving who were not accustomed to these changes, they were literally driving into these bollards at night where there were darker areas. And had there been a biker in that, they would have been killed.
Yeah. Okay. So no excuse to being made here at all. That was State Highways reaction to, some pretty terrible instances on that road, and some pretty awful things that had happened. So that was different than this, in that we have time, we have plans, we're going to have public meetings, this is something that's coming along, and we're not, this isn't going to be something done that quickly, if you will, if you know what I mean. It's not meant to be that at all. But now would you mention which project it was? I totally understand that makes sense. And I understand where you're coming from.
Jean, just a second. Yeah. Let me tack on to what she's saying, because it's not just those people who are sitting on the roads. It's, you have to go back and make it broader, so that it's the Randolph Hills community, which is on the other side of 355 across the railroad tracks. It's all of us that are using these roads almost every day. And if there's not a broad reach out, we don't know about them. And not everybody, the world has become so self-served that you run out of time that you can find all these things. So that the fact that it's going out on what DOT or the county might consider appropriate with the media and the social stuff and all that, that's great. But not everybody is pasted to those pieces. So you
Okay.
need to look broader than just the people who are living right on those roadways and step back into the neighborhoods that are adjacent, which means a good part of this whole area in the master planning. So the whole North Bethesda community, all the way down the pike to the Beltway, going north to the city limits, and going east and west.
Okay.
So that for all of us that use these roads, we know what the thinking is and what's being thought about and planned.
Okay. I appreciate this feedback. Thank you. I do. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's getting my wheels turning already thinking about that. Like I said, this is not meant to be a surprise on anybody. You're not going to come up one night and we're going to stick all the medians in the middle of the night. This will be coming along. This intersection is going to be under construction long before this. And that will be changing this a great deal. I don't know what the outreach was of the intersection itself. I don't know. And that's been under design for quite some time, I know, but even if there was outreach done a few years ago, people forget, people change, people, new people come to the community and wouldn't know anything about it. So I don't know what their outreach was, but for this, you got me thinking, and I appreciate it. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you. And thanks for sharing your feedback on why you feel this way too. That was helpful.
I have one more point before you go.
Yeah.
That particular stretch of road for a long time now, since it has become developed, has created a situation where pedestrians, predominantly people crossing from, I'm trying to think of that name of that road. Maybe Nkosi can help me out. The new road that they created in front of the convention center. Mm-hmm. People cross there when they walk, whether they walk from the buildings or Lux Manor community or whatever, across that road. But a lot of people don't cross in the crosswalks. They cross in the middle of the street. And I have been witness to several people getting hit in that area. I don't know if those people survived or not, but I definitely saw what had happened and the fallout from that. Encouraging the bike lanes in that will also encourage bikers to do the same thing, unless there is some kind of a barrier put on that road, which is a visual barrier as well as a physical barrier. So that might be something you want to consider. And once again, the lighting is much better along that road than it had been, but there are sections that are still difficult to see, both pedestrians and bikers, all along that road if you're driving, if it's dark and if it's storming. So considering other forms of lighting for pedestrians, bikers, etc., I think is a critical part of that formula that you're considering right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for Jean regarding?
I hope that was helpful. I wasn't sure what everyone was looking for, but I hope that
I think it
at least
was.
brings you up to speed anyway.
Correct.
And
I think it was for this informed group of people that we have with us this evening. So
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Jean, thank you for coming by. We do appreciate it, and I know you'll follow up on some of the items that committee members asked for. So
will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Appreciate your time. So next up is Heather Delpolsky. Heather is the land use attorney. She'll be talking about the proposed rezoning of the shopping center on 55, right across the street from Montrose Crossing. So Heather?
Yep. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, terrific. Well, thank you so much, Heather Delpolsky. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Wire Gill. I'll just be really brief in introduction. I have with me Abby Ochlack and Gregory Reed with Kimco Corporation. They are the applicant and the owners of, well, not they, but Kimco, the owners of the subject shopping center. Abby and Greg will share their screen in a moment just so that we can walk you through a brief presentation. As Nkosi said, the property under discussion, it is 12101 Rockville Rockville Pike. It's also known as Pike Center. It is across the street, across Boo Avenue, just north of Montrose Crossing Shopping Center. It's currently developed with an approximately 81,000 square foot shopping center. It's a fairly sort of old school, if you will, strip shopping center. We are seeking rezoning of the property to permit just slightly more density than is currently allowed under the existing zoning, and we'll go into that in a little bit in the presentation. The proposed rezoning would be in anticipation of eventually filing actually redevelopment applications for the site. And the proposed rezoning, if approved, it would permit up to 760 multifamily residential units, including 15% moderately priced dwelling units or MPDUs, and up to 90,000 square feet of non-residential uses. We did file the rezoning application with the county over the summer. We don't yet have assigned hearing dates just because we are still in the technical intake review process, but we expect hearing dates would probably be sometime late fall or early winter. So I'm going to turn to Abby and Greg so that they can share their screens and walk you through the presentation in a little bit more detail, and then we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good evening. Thank you, Heather. My name is Greg Reed. I am the Vice President of Development for Kimco. As Heather said, I'm joined by Abby Aklick, who is the Director of Development for the area for Kimco. A little bit about Kimco. We are a publicly traded REIT with over 550 properties around the country. We have over 100 million square feet of leasable areas, our shopping center. Locally, this is the only project we own actually in Montgomery County. We do own two in Gaithersburg, one of which is called the Kentlands Market Square. It's anchored by a Whole Foods and a Sinopolis. You may have heard of that. So a little bit about Kimco. We are one of the largest owner-operators of outdoor grocery anchored shopping centers in the country. We are not what you would call a merchant builder. We hold for long term and operate our shopping centers. As a publicly traded company and a REIT, we pay a dividend. So what our goal is to improve our shopping centers, anchor them in the community, and then hold them for a long time so they give us reoccurring income so we can pay a reoccurring dividend to shareholders. So everything we try to do is for the long-term and stability of our shopping centers. That's why this rezoning is not something on the intent that we will do it immediately, but it's planning the center for the future. We think Pike is a great center since we've acquired it. We got the center in 2021 when we merged with Weingarten, and that's how Kimco became the owner of the center. Since then, what we've been trying to do is lease up the center. Even though we filed for this rezoning application, this is to look, as I said, probably 3 to 10 years down the road for this center. So in the interim, we don't want any vacancy, and we've been trying to lease it up and bring some exciting new tenants to our shopping center to anchor it for the short term while looking for the long-term future. A lot of what I said, Kimco, we try to be part of the community. We have an incredible focus on ESG. Part of our requirements are any buildings we build gold LEED is our standard. We recently did a $500 million green bond and successfully completed that. So everything we try to do is to be good neighbors and part of the community, including what we're proposing here. Just to go through a few things we own. We own 6 of the 9 village centers in Columbia, if you're familiar with them. Wild Lake was one that we redeveloped about 10 years ago and brought a mixed use component to it with 230 apartments. And we're now opening a grocery outlet in that center today. So it's been a great case of redevelopment. In Northern Virginia, if you're familiar with Amazon's headquarters, we own a property right across the street anchored by an extremely successful Costco. But in the last 6 years, we've built 2 multifamily buildings there, the Whitmer and the Milton. The Whitmer opened about 5 years ago. It's the taller one in the background. The Milton is an 11-story building in the foreground. Both very successful, built on a metro stop, as again, anchored by a Costco with a mall that's included in between the 2 buildings. And then Lincoln Square is a downtown site that we built in Philadelphia. It used to be a historic train garden where actually when President Lincoln was assassinated, it was one of the stops of the train going through taking him home. It was redeveloped with the Sprouts, And then we build a mixed use building ground up that includes a Target on the second floor, small shop retail on the first, with residential above. These are just sort of a few of the examples in the area of mixed use projects that we have done. All these we built and we own. So to go over the site, I'll turn it over to Abby and she'll go through some details of what we're proposing and what our request is.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We have already kind of identified where the site is, but here you can kind of see on the plan, we're about a little less than a half mile from the Twin Brook Metro Station, right on the edge of the county line in the city of Rockville. So you can see that's right where we are. Again, here's the center today. We're a little over 6.5 acres on the site. And as mentioned, there's currently about 81,000 square feet of retail on the site. And we are actively leasing additional restaurants. So those are under construction. And so you should see those opening at the end of the year, at the beginning of next year. So really, today is kind of looking at the long-term future of the site, like Greg mentioned. And so we're looking at the zoning to see what we can do in the future, given the suggestions for the site in the White Flint 2 sector plan. The zoning today is a CR 2.0, which with a C of 0.75 and an R of 1.25 and a height of 200 feet. And so really, given the requirements of the White Flint, which are listed here, to include a half-acre neighborhood green and creating some blocks, we ran into a little bit of an issue in not having enough density in order to support all of that. And so really, our proposed zoning is to increase from a 2.0 to a 2.5, and most of that density goes into the R category to get us to a 2.25 residential. As you can see here, it's about 270,000 square feet of additional residential density on the site is what we're asking for. And you can see on the map here that we're really kind of within everything else around us, and we're not changing the height. We're keeping the 200 feet. So you can see that's the increase. And so here's kind of our current concept plan that we're currently working with as we move through the process with the county. The idea is that we'd have the buildings built in 2 phases to include the neighborhood green on the Pike. We'd be keeping the existing light here that goes into the shopping center and creating a new street that would connect through Rollins Avenue. Rollins Avenue actually doesn't go across Chapman right now, but our proposal brings it across and really creates kind of an option to have a potential grocer if we have a tenant in the future, as well as inline retail that really activate the neighborhood green. Again, the 15% MPDUs would be provided in these 2 buildings, and we would have side paths around all 3 sides of the new development. Here you go. Here you can see a 3D massing view of what this could look like in the future. So really you can see building B, which would be phase 2, is taller, which is closer to the metro even. Again, here's just some images that we are using as kind of conceptual precedent imagery as we start to go through this. And really, that is what we have for you today. So happy to answer any questions you may have. Feel free, obviously, if you think of them, you can reach out to our team, and we're happy to answer anything you may have during the process.
Abby, I'll ask a question. I noticed on the sketch you had something called Luna Hall.
Yes, that is a new restaurant concept that is currently under construction. And so I don't have a date of when they're opening, but I think the date is February of next year for Luna Hall.
So all the current vacant space you all hope to lease up until you actually have approvals and start moving.
Correct. So it's actually leased even though it's not open. So we only, on this map, you can see we have 2 vacant spaces. They're the blue. And so they're working on getting everything up and running. It's a long-term vision, so we don't really anticipate starting construction of phase 1 for at least another 5 years.
Thank you.
All right, I see one hand. Ms. Beckner, go ahead.
Yeah. I missed what you said about the height of the buildings that you're going to get approval for. The proposal is to keep the same height that's already allowed, the height of 200 feet in the current zoning. We think that's the appropriate height for the site given its location from the metro, and so we're not asking to change the height.
And how many stories is that?
Let's go to the massing because I do not remember off the top of my head. I know we're proposing a 6 to 7 story building on building A, and then I think 1, 2, 3.
It's usually upwards of 20.
60. So we're about 17 stories at the highest point. But obviously you can see we're looking to do kind of a variety of heights to create some interest in the building.
And
on average, when you think about it, on average, in any multifamily building, residential heights are about 10 feet floor to floor.
Right.
Retail is generally at least 20 for quality retail. So that gives you an idea of what we could fit max, but that doesn't, that doesn't include higher height lobbies, higher height amenity things, any specialty things you want to fit in the building.
And go back again to the timeline. When would development actually begin?
For the construction of it, probably on average, I would say no sooner than 5 years.
Okay.
This is only the first step. And like I said, Kimco holds on to our properties. We don't sell things. So we're looking for the long-term future, not the immediate. We're still signing leases. Those leases give the tenants at least 5 to 10 years of control.
Okay.
So that to give you an idea when we're still opening. Luna, we're investing money in it. The tenant's investing money in it. So that's, that gives you an idea that this is a long-term goal and nothing happening in 2025 or 2026.
Yeah. I should mention too that so we are just proposing the actual rezoning of the site now. Before we could actually redevelop pursuant to the rezoning, assuming that it's approved, we would then actually have to file sketch plans, preliminary plan of subdivision, and site plans with MNCPPC. And so before any of those applications would be filed in the future, we have both required, but also just general community outreach meetings that we would be doing because it's the right thing to do. So we would certainly be reaching out to NCOSI and coming back before you before we file any of the actual development applications in the future as well.
Well, I represent Midtown Bethesda North, which is right across the street on Blue Avenue. And over the past, 10 or 12 years, we've gotten 3 or 4 different proposed development that was going to go on there. And so that I guess my community is very confused about, what is really going on and, how high are these buildings going to be and where's our view going to go? And I mean, there are all sorts of those concerns.
Right. Yeah, well, this is definitely the current proposal. I don't think anybody other than Kimco would have any proposals since they are the owners. So you're hearing the latest and greatest from us.
So we should throw away all the other ones we've gotten, huh?
I would say so, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you saw my email address, and I'm sure your condo has received letters from me when we sent out notice of the pre-submission community meeting. So, don't hesitate to reach out in the future with any questions or anything. If you haven't heard anything in a while and want to know, what's happening, feel free to reach out.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Abby, I do have one question. I noticed on the listing of highlights, it says a potential grocer.
Yes. As Greg mentioned, we are typically a grocery anchored shopping center owner, so we have a lot of relationships with grocers. And so what we do in most of our development projects is provide a spot for them, so that if in the future, when it is time to build a building, if there is an opportunity, we have the space for it. So
you are aware of all the other grocery stores within a couple of blocks, including Wegmans coming.
We are.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for the Kimco team? I don't hear any other voices. I don't see any other hands. So Heather team and Kimco team, thank you again for
thank you
making time for this group. And as you go down, down the road, just knock on our door again regarding any other noticing you want to share with this informed group of residents in North Bethesda.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you for your help in coordinating, Kosi.
Sure, you're welcome. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
So the last thing on our agenda is, Abby, you had an item I think you're still on the call. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I'll make this brief because I know everybody was ready to start their nights here. I just wanted to thank the Planning Board and the Montgomery County Council. We got the final approval for the creek restoration project that we've been working on for about 10 years. And that project is going to start getting underway very, very shortly this fall. And then we're going to be seeing real improvement in 2025. So just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who's been helping me work on this, and telling you all it's going to be a go. Sherry, the president, and I are going to be interviewed by the county, I believe, next week, and we can share that with this group as well. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your advocacy for the Neilwood Creek improvements. As you mentioned, it's been many years in the making. So congrats to you and other folks in the Lux Manor community who've had to deal with the local impacts of climate change. So thanks again for your work and advocacy. So any other, before we wrap, any other topics of North Bethesda, Pike District? I see Eugene, the Executive Director of Pike District Partnership, is on this call. If he has any comments or any other notices you want to share, or I see Krista Brick's name here as well. Anything else to share? Hearing nothing from them. I see Susan.
Hold on a second. I have two things.
Okay, Susan, go ahead.
What happened with the Randolph Road Railroad overpass? Is that still on hold within the CIP? Do you know?
The Randolph Road
overpass on the railroad tracks.
There has never been a CIP regarding Randolph Road overpass. That's number one. There was.
I thought they had planning money, and it's been there for years with just planning money.
Yeah, there was over a decade ago. You had a proposal to terminate Randolph Road at the CSX crossings. But there hasn't been any other.
Well, there was to be a bridge over the railroad tracks.
Oh, yes, that's never been funded. That's a recommendation in the 2018 White Flint 2 sector plan.
So there's still nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing in the CIP on that. Every now and then there's maybe a community person that reaches out to myself or director or someone else regarding that. But yes, it hasn't been funded by DOT or the state. It really requires two, parts of both east side, west side to sort of work together. You need a landing spot for both sides of the tracks to sort of make that work. But no, there's been no funding, no design dollars, nothing like that yet. So.
Okay, across from Congressional, the signs for Wegmans grocery store now are in the windows.
Okay.
Did you all participate in any of the traffic studies or the impact that were going to occur on the pike?
Not that it pertains to that particular use. That's within the city of Rockville.
Right, but you all didn't participate.
Not regarding that particular development. No. That's within the city limits of Rockville.
Oh, yeah. But
so we do share.
The overhang is within blocks to the county.
Yeah, but we do share on a project by project basis traffic information. But much of that area is within like a metro station policy area using the old language. Right. And by and large, we've been more permissive on traffic in those areas than we were a decade or more ago. So it's a red policy area today. So therefore, we wouldn't be looking sort of significantly for a variety of roadway improvements in that area, since it's a red policy area. So,
Cozy, this
yes,
is Jane
Eugene.
Cornelius.
Good to hear from you.
apologize because I was on mute and I was trying to speak. So,
Okay, go ahead. Floor is
but
yours.
no, I want to thank you for this meeting because I have been very, very informed, especially about the concerns of the bike lane, and particularly the BRA not having a designated lane. That was very important for me to hear. So I really appreciate the comments of the young lady that presented that. But yes, this was a very, very important meeting, and I hope that members of this committee reach out to me and really educate me on what I need to be really advocating for as the executive director of the Pike District. So I invite each and every one of you, please reach out to me. Let's have coffee. Let's exchange emails, whatever. But really take the time to educate me because I really do need to hear it. And what I heard tonight was very informative.
Well, thank you for coming this evening, Eugene. Appreciate it. I'll share your email and the information from Andrew, and I'll do it in a few minutes. So,
yeah, I took so many notes now. I'm like, I'm running out of paper. Yeah.
It's okay.
So, yeah.
So any other questions, comments from folks before we wrap? Hearing none, so I will share the information from Andrew Bossy, our DOT rep, as part of this implementation group, as well as Eugene's email. Is the director for the Pike District Partnership. So if there are any, so between now and probably the next time we meet later in the fall, we should have the fire station going to the planning board. That's the only thing I think that will be coming in a near term in terms of the public side review, and then on the private development side, maybe Rose Village. So, so with that, thanks everyone for participating. I'll post this meeting later in the week on the website. Any other North Bethesda information, please. Myself, Tom Lewis with the County Exec's Office, or Pike District Partnership with Eugene and Krista and others. So just reach out to us, and hopefully be able to resolve any matters that you may have. So with that, thanks for participating, and see you next time.
Thank you, Nkosi.
Sure, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.